Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all here today. The employees of BK Lighting TEKA Illumination, Star Finishes, Blue Dolphin Design and Engineering, and Etendue Cafe have spent the last 13 years remembering and honoring the lives of those lost and the lives of those who heroically served on September 11, 2001. On that day, America experienced a tragedy unlike any before. Though she may bear the scars of her past afflictions, we have risen up stronger and more united than ever before. We join here today to pause, to reflect, and to remember not only the tragic events that unfolded on the morning of September 11th, but also to celebrate the fierce strength that anchors America's core. I encourage you to take heart today, the messages and stories you're about to hear. They are stories of tragedy, yes, but also of triumph and victory. We must not allow the events of our past to define who we are. We must turn to our Creator and seek guidance and protection, for any action we take on our own accord will surely result in failure. United we stood and navigated through a tragedy, and united America still stands strong today. At this time, I'd like to ask the color guard of troop number 223 to come forward to present our colors. Thank you.
Hello, we are from Boy Scout Troop 223, and we would like to start off by thanking BK Lighting for letting us help here for many years. And if you could please rise for the flag ceremony. Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance. Color guard, prepare to present the colors. Color guard, present the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard, post the colors. Color guard, reform. Color guard, return to post. At ease.
You know, we're here today to talk about our true heroes. There's a lot of heroes that the media depicts. You see them. You see them on TV, you hear them on the radio. However, we don't seem to hear much about our real heroes, those that don't think about themselves but others. Our true heroes are those who put themselves in harm's way to protect us. Included are our active service men and women, our veterans, those people that gave their lives for our freedom, our police and firefighters who protect us, our guests here today. These people show extraordinary acts of courage. Today, as we remember the victims, their families, and the heroes, and the people involved in those events of 9/11, I'm sure each one of us here has somebody we know or is part of our family that deserves our thoughts and prayers today. Let's have a moment of silence, and I'll end our moment of silence with today's invocation. Heavenly Father, we welcome you here today. We give you praise and we thank you for this opportunity to gather together to honor these heroes and to remember those events of 9/11. We thank you for the blessing to live in this country that allows us to hold an event such as this. Thank you for Doug's commitment and the family of BK Lighting companies and all in attendance here that we will never forget. We pray that you will bless and protect the men and women in active service, defending and protecting our freedom and safety. We pray that you will comfort and bless those who've lost family members or friends and all who were involved in those events of 9/11. We pray that you'll daily give us wisdom and give our guidance to our president, his advisors, and all in decision-making positions. We pray for your presence here today and that you will bless this event, our speakers, to your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Douglas Hagen.
Good morning. Welcome to everyone. I'd like to start with acknowledging some special guests that we have here today with us. And this is in no particular order. It's the way Laura has given it to me. She's my second wife. First is Michael Keats. He's with us today. He's our Madera District Attorney. We have Rick Fornelli, who's a Madera County Supervisor. Very honored to have these men here. And one that was really a surprise because he screwed up my whole talk because I was going to spend a few minutes explaining about him and talk about him and introduce him to you if you hadn't met him yet. And here he is, Justin Bond, one of our true American heroes. I'd also like to take this opportunity to honor my wife, who is always here behind me and allows me to do what I do, which also helps our companies to do what we do. So my wife, Kathleen Hagen. And two very special guests to my heart here today. My two of my grandsons, Andrew and Colin. Hi, guys. Andrew is in history class today. This is part of his history class. Isn't that right? On September 11, 2002, we met here for the first time to honor the heroes of the 9/11 disaster. And that encompasses many, many people from many, many different walks of life. But we're here now, September 11th, 2014, 12 years later, and we are still honoring the heroes of 9/11. However, there are tens of thousands of additional heroes since this first time we met, and we are here to honor them also. These are the brave men and women of our armed forces who have served and died in service to our country. Think about that. Think about that commitment to serve and die. It's huge. It's huge. These brave heroes volunteered, each and every one of them. This is an all-volunteer armed services. Now, I go back to when it wasn't, and I'm sure there's a few here that remember the draft board, 18 years old, going down and registering, and then hoping and praying you could stay in school and not get drafted. That's no longer the case. Our armed forces volunteer. They want to go. You're not told you have to go. They volunteered to fight this country's enemies for the last 13 years. How can we not honor these heroes? The Webster Dictionary defines heroes as a person who is admired for great or brave acts or fine qualities. This describes all of the men and women that have given so much over the last 13 years to keep us safe from an enemy that would kill us with no regard, destroy our way of life. 13 years. Who would ever believe that this war could go on so long? And it's getting worse, not better. We just heard our president last night speak about a future with no end in sight. So it now appears that this war could go on for many more years. Soon we will have young people fighting this war that were not yet born on September 11th, 2001. The American people need to wake up and realize this is not an Afghan war. This is not an Iraq war, but it is a war of ideals and humanity. Our enemies don't care about education, hunger, poverty, corporations, the stock market, or any of the things that we feel are the most important in our lives at any one moment. We have but one thing that stands between us and them: our armed forces. If you want your way of life to continue for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, I now have 2, and beyond, then we must wake up and support our military. Thank them, reward them, and honor them. What more can they give us? This then leads me to the question of, what more can we give them? This is the question that every American should be asking of themselves. All service members leave their families, friends, loved ones behind and go to serve without knowing if they will return dead or alive, whole or maimed. We cannot do enough for the dedication, but we must try. We must try with our time, our money, and our votes. It is the least we can do, but it's not all we can do. When you see a man or woman in uniform, walk over to them, thank them. I do it all the time, and most are embarrassed. They really are. But when I leave, they get a big smile on their face. Give them a hearty handshake for their service and thank them. If you see them in an airport restaurant, I've done this many times, buy them a meal. If you see them in a bar having a drink, buy one for them. How simple. These little gestures will help to let them know that the American people are behind them and support them. But we must do more, a lot more. Our government gives people who do nothing more of our money every year while cutting the services to our military personnel. This has got to stop. That's where your votes come in. Many of our enlisted personnel live below the poverty line. While they are fighting for our freedoms, their families are broke. When they return home whole or maimed, our government does little or nothing to help them reconnect with society and their families. Many will require long-term medical care, some for the rest of their lives. Our VA medical system is broken. While I realize there are many good people within the VA medical system, it is understaffed and underfunded. The VA system is run by bureaucrats, our government again. It is up to us to fill in the gaps. We're the American people. Let's talk about how we can help and honor these brave service people. As a company, we have supported the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund for years. This great organization is sponsored by the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum in New York City. Every dollar donated to them goes to our wounded service personnel. The museum underwrites all the costs for running and administering this fund. They have funded and built specialty hospitals and research centers for the care and treatment of our wounded heroes throughout the United States, outside the government. The VA goes to them. I have a handout that will tell you all about this wonderful organization and what they are doing to support our returning wounded warriors. Please read this, go to their website, and then donate all you can to honor our heroes. Last year, here comes the part of my speech where it got all screwed up, so I gotta have to ad-lib in here. Last year, we were honored with our guest speaker, Sergeant Justin Bond. Justin is one of our wounded returning heroes. He has started an organization, Our Heroes' Dreams, with the goal of reducing the suicide rate of our returning servicemen. Before I met Justin, I had no idea. I had no idea the epidemic that is going on. Justin is local. Our Heroes' Dreams is local, but wanting to help on a national scale. We as a company are also helping Justin to get his vision to reality. Justin even rode a Segway all the way across the United States to bring light to the epidemic suicides in our returning heroes. Anybody in here ever rode a Segway? Not too many. We did a tour in San Francisco on Segways with my older grandchildren several years ago now. And that was for about 2 hours. And I was dead. I can't even imagine across the United States. But did I mention, Justin only has one leg. He didn't do it on 2 legs. You imagine? That's dedication. He lost his leg in battle to our country, in battle for our country, excuse me. I also have a flyer that will explain this great organization. Go to their website and see what you can do to help. We also have with us today the president of Our Heroes' Dreams, Susan Mole. Susan? And Justin Bond, obviously. So afterwards, please take time and talk to them. Find out about this great organization and what you can do to help them and move forward. We've also supported our troops that are stationed overseas with care packages every month for 12 years. This has been a very successful program. Gauging from the responses we received from them, it's overwhelming. We have received letters, pictures, postcards, flags, and even personal visits to our factory by these great heroes. They constantly tell us that these packages remind them of home, and that it's a great morale booster to know that we support their efforts. This is something we can do personally or get your company involved in. You would be surprised by the number of employees in your company that have family and friends serving overseas. I know. It only takes one person to head up a project like this. Our one person is Laura Blinn. I see Jim. Where's Laura? Oh, there you are, right in front. Usually in front. She leads from the front, by the way. Laura, for the last 12 years, has ensured that our care packages are filled to overflowing and sent each and every month. These boxes just bulge. If you're interested in a program like this, please reach out to Laura, and she will give you all the information you need. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list of the great programs that are out there to help our troops. but it's our list. These are the things dear to our heart. 12 years ago, we made a pledge we will never forget. Today, we reaffirm that pledge. We will never forget. God bless you, and God bless our service personnel everywhere. Thank you.
I want to share with you the story of Jonathan Lelpy. Jonathan was a New York firefighter in Squad 288. On the day of the attack, Jonathan called his parents and told them he was going to the World Trade Center. "John, please be careful." These were the last words Lee Lelpy said to his son. Jonathan knew his father would understand his sense of duty, as he was only one of 3 firemen in his family. His father, Lee, now retired, and his brother both were a part of the New York Fire Department. Jonathan would not make it out of the South Tower that day. His heroic sacrifice, and the sacrifice of the 5 other members of Squad 288, would save the lives of many that day. Jonathan was a son, a husband, and a father. He loved to hunt, to fish, but most of all, he loved being a firefighter. Jonathan, a 6-year veteran of Squad 288, had hoped to join his father's old unit in Brooklyn, and he inherited his father's badge number, 12642. Lee, Jonathan's father, describes the events of September 11th. "I arrived half an hour after the North Tower had collapsed. My mission was to find my son, but I wound up staying 9 months. It was chaos, like a war zone. The 16-acre footprint of both towers had turned into more than 20 feet of rubble." Lee described the air as a cloud of substance, filled with debris, making it difficult to breathe. Tragically, 3 months later, on December 11th, 2001, Jonathan's father and brother would be the ones to carry him out of the South Tower. Of his son, Lee has stated many times that he was never one to shy away from helping anyone. In the years following September 11th, Lee has become the president of the September 11th Families Association and co-founded the 9/11 Tribute Center located near Ground Zero. His personal peace has forever crumbled along with the towers.
Let me tell you, my son Jonathan, 29 years old, married 2 little boys at the time, called me every single day. Every day. 5, 6, 7 times a day. Same questions. "Dad, what's up? What's going on? How you doing?" He'd call me while I was at work if there was a fire in the city and he was listening to it. "Dad, what kind of job was it?" All right? Every day, every day. He lived a mile away. He lived a mile away. He would call every day. I can't tell you. I can't tell you how I missed those calls.
The many months of digging through the debris left him with cancer, nodules on both lungs, and unfathomable memories. Now, his days are devoted to telling stories, educating people about the attacks, and preserving the legacy of his son and buddy, Jonathan. It is my honor to pay tribute to Jonathan Lelpy, a fallen hero of 9/11.
The story of Benjamin Clark is a story of a hero without a badge, a squad, or a unit. After serving in the Gulf War, Benjamin pursued his passion of cooking, which led to a successful career as an executive chef for corporate clients. September 11th found Ben preparing meals for the people at the Fiduciary Trust Company. His response to the situation showed his character to be as brave as any first responder. A fiduciary official would later credit Clark with saving hundreds of lives. He made sure that everyone in his department and on the 96th floor in the South Tower were able to exit the building safely. Ben even stopped on the 78th floor to assist a woman in a wheelchair. He could have gotten out, his mother says. Everybody else did. Ben's mother ascribes his courage to having been a Marine for 8 years. My son was a Marine, so you know he wasn't going to leave anybody behind, she says. More than a Marine, Ben's lifelong reputation was that of always being ready to lend a hand to whoever might need it. He had only to see a neighbor in need of assistance, big or small, and he would exclaim, "I'll help, I'll help." He was always there to help, his mother says. Upon seeing others suddenly in the most mortal danger, Benjamin Clark's everyday decency became uncommon courage. Known to most for his fabulous meatloaf, remembering everybody's name and favorite meal, he showed himself to be as courageous as if he had stepped off any New York Fire Department rig. A hero, his mother says, my hero. As much of a hero as Ben was, his real character was that of being a great father and husband. The enormity of his heroic sacrifice is made apparent by the photos of his own 5 children displayed in his mother's home. He was happily married to a wonderful woman, LaShawn Clark, and was the happiest of dads. His wife and the 5 kids were his life. Elsie says, if my son could have walked around with those kids in his pocket every day, he would have. More than 800 people honored Benjamin at his memorial service, including Marines in their military uniforms and chefs in their white hats and coats, out of respect for their fallen brother in arms. We pay tribute to Benjamin Clark, a falling of 9/11.
Like many people on that day, Lauren Manning found her life irreparably changed. Lauren Manning, a senior vice president and partner at the financial firm of Cantor Fitzgerald, was a half hour late to work on the morning of September 11th due to an unexpected phone call. When she finally got to work, she made it only as far as the lobby before a terrorist-piloted plane hit the North Tower. Pressurized by the explosion from above, fire spread like a gigantic torch from the elevator shaft into the lobby, engulfing Lauren in flames. In the blink of an eye, Lauren's life was dramatically changed, and she would never be the same as a result of the burns suffered on over 80% of her body. Lauren shared her motivation to survive 9/11. I prayed for death in the unspeakable way that people who are experiencing unimaginable pain can. But then I thought of my 10-month-old son, Tyler. I couldn't leave my son. I hadn't had him long enough. I refused to die, stumbling into the street in flames, surrendering my life in a gutter. At Cantor Fitzgerald, where she worked, 658 of Lauren's colleagues were killed. Greg, her husband, also worked at the World Trade Center at Euro Brokers on the 84th floor of the South Tower. 61 of his colleagues were killed. On 9/11, he planned to attend a breakfast conference at Windows on the World, the restaurant atop of the Trade Center. At the last minute, he changed his mind to help a friend who had foot surgery. Everyone at the conference was killed. Lauren believes that it's a miracle that her son is not an orphan. Lauren spent a month in an induced coma, followed by months of hospitalization, rehabilitation, dozens of operations and skin grafts were the beginning of Lauren's long struggle back to life.
When I think about it, I first remember coming out of the coma and realizing I had been hurt, but miraculously thinking I'd be going home at the end of the week. I couldn't see any part of my body, and mentally I hadn't adjusted to the severity of the injury. And the 18% dwindled down into the single digits with infections and lung collapses and amputations, you name it. But at the end of it all, I felt just the grace and the good fortune to be able to fight for my life.
She spent months just learning to walk and stand, as well as having the tips of 4 fingers amputated. In spite of all the painful and debilitating challenges, Lauren Manning will tell you she's lucky. I was dealt a tough hand, she says, but I still had a hand to play, and I never want to forget the enormity of that gift. During the long recovery, Lauren's spirit and endurance were tested beyond bounds of reason. However, she has courageously taken her personal devastations and turned it around to help others. Lauren shares her experiences through a book that details how she survived physically and mentally. Her inspiring story has helped many others through their own struggles. She has caught national attention and has used that as a way of inspiring others. Lauren also gives her energies to helping people through tough times with organizations of which she is now a part. sanctuaries for families, and iPads for soldiers. Lauren's story is one of courage, endurance, and growth. We celebrate Lauren Manning, a survivor of 9/11.
The feeling is just unreal. And you have that feeling again when you go through the memorial and you see the different pictures and you see the different artifacts and everything that brings those memories back to mind. All the small artifacts, the shoes and the wallets and the keys and the cell phones and things like that that were all displayed. These were all personal items of people who were never found. Just going back to the museum and seeing the buildings, the One World Trade Center built, and see it standing there and the sunlight shining off of it, and just, feeling that feeling of strength in a tragedy such as this, that still we bounce back. Yes, we've been knocked down, but we're standing strong again. The World Trade Center was much more than just a few buildings. It consisted of 7 structures on 16 acres of offices, restaurants, and an underground shopping mall. 50,000 people worked at the complex, and 40,000 others passed through daily. Now, 13 years later, the National September 11th Memorial Museum has opened and memorializes those who lost their lives, and to ensure, once again, that the world will never forget. 110,000 square feet of display space is located at the heart of the World Trade Center site. The museum takes visitors 70 feet underground. So entering the museum is a descent from the light of the outside into dimly lit depths, which adds to the overall power and emotion of the memorial. One of the most detailed models ever built of the World Trade Center is a powerful centerpiece of the memorial. It highlights what the World Trade Center was, rather than what became of it. The museum also contains artifacts, both large and small, that tell the story of what happened there. The survivor staircase, which is the last visible remnant of the buildings after the attacks, served as a critical life route for many to escape. Visitors can also view a massive twisted piece of impact steel that suffered a direct hit from American Airlines Flight 11. Though the museum is filled with massive pieces that bear the scars of tragedy, it's the small personal objects that are perhaps the most haunting. Smudged reading glasses. A pair of heels. A trampled wallet splayed to reveal its contents of coins and credit cards. A flight attendant's wing lapel. In many ways, the museum is as much about the World Trade Center's demise as it is about New York City's resilience. This is especially evident above ground at the Sunwash Memorial. Almost 3,000 victims' names are engraved around the twin memorial pools, which shimmer in the footprints of the Twin Towers. Here, beauty has taken the place of tragedy.
Those are very powerful videos, and I want to thank everyone for participating in those and doing those for us. We have another special guest with us this year, and I get the privilege of introducing this gentleman. He served in the Air Force for 2 years before attending Fresno State University, my alma mater. He then served on the faculty for the Air University at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. After numerous achievements and many promotions, this gentleman retired as Lieutenant Colonel after 30 years of service. Without giving away too much of his speech, I'm proud and honored to welcome our special guest this year, Lieutenant Colonel John Cotter, retired.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for coming out today. It's an honor to be here with heroes like Justin and the military veterans that have served all around the world to preserve our way of life. And you know, after the events of 9/11, it's a blessing just to be around. I woke up that day. I was living in Arlington, hopped on the metro. It was a beautiful day, just like today. Went to work, got a cup of coffee, read the intel updates. I was working in intelligence at the time, and went through all that, made sure there wasn't anything I had to tell the generals about that was happening around the world, and went down to a meeting on the outside ring on the Army side of the building, a recently renovated wedge number 1 of the building, so some kind of brand new office spaces, and sat down and went through the first part of the briefing, and I guess by divine intervention, the briefer forgot the second half of his PowerPoint presentation. So he said, hey, you know, let's take 20 minutes, and you know, you can check emails, go get another cup of coffee, whatever you need to do, use a bathroom, whatever, and we'll reconvene and we'll get started again. So ran back up to my office. Next slide, please. I'll digress for just a second. I was actually here, and it's my fault that they put the dot there, so don't hold that against or anybody. But my bad. I was trying to describe where I was over a fish taco a couple of weeks ago, so I failed miserably. So my fault. And thank you for the AV crew for helping out with the slides. I appreciate that. So went back up to my office, and as I walked in, I worked in a restricted area. It was what we call a skiff or a vault, and you know, cipher locks and all that Maxwell Smart stuff to get in, you know, and so I, you know, figure out the combo and everything, and we walk in, and everybody was watching CNN. There were TV monitors, probably about like the one in the back there. And they were watching the first tower of the World Trade Center burn. And so the guys that flew, I was a flyer at the time, said, you know, we're trying to figure out, did it take off out of JFK? Did it take off out of Newark? Did it take off out of LaGuardia? What kind of an aircraft was it? A couple of guys with a more historical bent said, you know, in World War II, a B-25 actually hit the Empire State Building. But that was at night and in bad weather, and this was clear and unlimited visibility that morning. So we were just amazed and trying to understand how an aircraft could get that far off course from one of the 3 major New York airports to where it would hit the World Trade Center. And while we're standing there, like I'm sure the rest of the world watching CNN, you saw the second aircraft maneuver into the second tower. And so again, the flyers among us said that was under controlled flight. That was intended to hit the World Trade Center. And so we realized at that moment that we were under some kind of an attack. Didn't really understand the enormity of it. Didn't really understand precisely what was going on. To give some perspective, at the Pentagon, we were right under what was then the approach to Reagan National, right on the river. And so there was an airplane going over about every 30 seconds. You know, all day long and on into early evening. And so we never imagined we would be the next target. And so we're still kind of standing there in the skiff watching, you know, the second World Trade Center tower burn, and then we were next. And the building shook violently. There was an enormous explosion. I still can't hear very well because of the damage that the sound did to my eardrums. And the vault that I was in, or the skip that I was in, the things fell down from the wall and the ceiling, and I wound up being pinned under some debris. It was actually a large 5-drawer safe that we used to store classified information in. The building shook violently enough to tip that over, and it landed on my left leg. And then a bunch of other debris fell on top of that, and then the ceiling started to burn. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Everybody else kind of, ran as fast as they could to try to get to the fire escapes, excuse me. And because the building was built in 1941, the fire escapes are very steep and very narrow and made of concrete. So everybody was kind of running to get to the fire escapes, and I couldn't get up. I was kind of stuck. And I was like, man, this is going to wreck like the rest of the day and probably most of the night. So I was trying with all my might to get some leverage and get that safe off of me, and it just wouldn't budge. And the ceiling was starting to burn through. It was kind of a suspended ceiling, a bit like this. It was starting to burn through. And I just kind of felt a peaceful calm come over me. And I thought, this is probably how it's going to end. And so I just kind of put my head back on the floor and kept watching the ceiling burn. And I thought, probably in a couple of minutes I'm going to get to see Jesus face to face. And I'm going to get to see my mom again, who'd passed on before us. And so none of that stuff you always hear about, your life passes before your eyes, or any of that stuff. It was just a real peaceful calm. And I was pretty sure that was it. And I was going to, get to see Jesus. And so just, again, perhaps by divine providence, a real big fella that I shared the office with that had played football at the Air Force Academy noticed I wasn't, out there by the fire escape trying to go down. And so he doubled back to come in and try to find me. And a master sergeant that had been an Army combat medic in Vietnam came back with him. And so the two of them together were able to get some purchase or some leverage on that debris and kind of just get it up far enough so I could kind of squeak out of there, like a cork out of a champagne bottle or something. And I was kind of hurt, but it's fascinating how adrenaline works. It just, you're so amped up. And you're probably in shock too, but you just don't feel the pain. And so we made our way to the, I keep favoring this side, sorry. We made our way over to the fire escape, which is right here, and started to go down the fire escape. I was on the 5th floor of the D ring. And next slide, please. I'll start to show you kind of what was going on at the time. The building had collapsed, of course, where the jet had hit. The jet had actually penetrated in 3 rings as it disintegrated into the ceiling. And so I was just to the right over here. And so we queued up at the fire escape, and we couldn't get down because there were too many people. So we chose, for some reason, to run to the left. And of course, we got about right to here. You can see daylight and smoke and flames coming up, and we're like, we're not going to get out that way either. So we doubled back, kind of waited for everybody to get down the stairs, went down the stairs ourselves. And if I could have the next slide, please. And squirted out right in the thick of it. The fire escape emptied out right here and here. And so we kind of tumbled out right in the middle of the frenetic activity going on. And the firefighters and first responders, those are brave guys. And they saw us come out, and they said, man, there's still people in there. So they turned around, ran back in. And so we got out, and we started to try to help people that were hurt and injured and dying, and doing whatever we could, pulling people, dragging people, helping out with first aid, the triage, the things that we learned in the Air Force as far as helping folks in a situation like that. All that training comes rushing back to you. And so we were kind of in the area here. There used to be the helicopter pad where the important people, the generals and stuff, used to fly in and out for helicopters. And so we were kind of all queued up in there. Helicopters were coming in. Firefighters from all over Northern Virginia were responding. Oh, thanks. Sorry. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry. Thanks, Laura. So they were all responding, helping out. The day kind of kept going on. May I have the next slide, please? Oh, that's a little better look at kind of what it looked like beforehand. So we continued to help people as best we could, and the first responders continued to pull people out. And at the risk of being macabre, they decided at some point they were going to take the dead to the middle here, to the center courtyard, because there was really nothing that could be done. And then they continued to land the helicopters and take off to take the injured away. By late that afternoon, it's funny how your mind thinks at a time like that, but I was like, oh, I'm a flyer. I got to go back in and get my leather jacket, you know. Just random thoughts that occur to you, you know, in strange times, and obviously didn't do that. But at some point, I was actually helping a guy kind of walk away, and a first responder of some sort came up and said, "Sir, you're pretty badly, you know, mangled." And I hadn't really even sat there and thought about it, but I looked down, and my left foot was like as big as a basketball, and I was like, oh, that really hurts, you know. So I sort of sat down, sort of fell backwards, you know, on the lawn there, and they cut everything off and put me in some sort of a SUV of some sort and took me to Fort Belvoir down south of Alexandria. It's an Army base with a little Army hospital, and they were good. They took good care down there, and I kind of remember being flipped over my tummy, and then, you know, that was all I remember. But they kind of took good care to put that back together for me. The rescue activity continued on through the night. The folks that lived at my apartment complex were up on the roof watching the building burn through the night. It actually continued to burn down the corridors and all the way to the center. All of these roofs were burning. And it was quite a sight, you know, from Arlington. People could see it from all over town burning. Of course, at the time, you know now that the second plane that went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, we believe in retrospect was intended to hit the Capitol. There has been speculation over the years, was it the White House or the Capitol? And actually, having flown into D.C. a number of times myself, the White House is extremely hard to see from the air. It's surrounded by tall buildings and tall trees, and it would be a difficult target to hit with an aircraft like that. Whereas Capitol Hill is right in the middle of everything. It's one of the tallest buildings in town. Both chambers of Congress were in session that day, the House and Senate. You know, and they always raise the flag over the appropriate chamber to show they're in session. So it was easy for the bad guys to figure out that both chambers were full of congressmen and senators. And what a statement that would have made to hit the dome or the rotunda. You know, what would that say about an attack on not only America, but on democracy around the world? Thankfully, the folks in the back of the jet, you know, sacrificed themselves, took the appropriate action, and brought the plane down at Shanksville to prevent that. As it went on through the night into the next day and the next day, you know, I was kind of recovering still in the hospital, and my boss, Lieutenant General David Deptula at the time, came and I was feeling sorry for myself. Boo-hoo, poor me, you know. And he came and said, "Man, quit loafing off, you know. Get back up. We got a war to fight. Let's get back in the action." And I was like, that was what I needed to hear. You know, it might not have worked on everybody, but that, for me personally, that was what I needed to hear. So, you know, kind of got going again, and you know, they told everybody, you know, when the attack happened, we were all in our dress blues, you know. It was kind of the world's biggest office complex. When everybody came back to work, we were in our fatigues or flight suits, which, you know, imparted a good feeling that we're warriors, you know. We're here to get to the bottom of this and figure out what happened. I was real fortunate. I got to work in the second basement of the building on the Air Force side, in another skiff called Checkmate, which is where they had done the battle planning for the first Desert Storm, and where we began to do the battle planning for what turned out to be the second one. And it was fascinating, the intelligence that was coming in. We already kind of had a handle on what was going on in Afghanistan and Iraq, and from the satellite imagery and things like that. That was interesting. My wife must have seen the fangs start coming out, because she's like, "Oh, the taking of human life is a precious thing," you know. And I'm like, "Yeah, got to get back in the fight." So it for me personally, as an Air Force officer and a flyer, that was kind of cathartic. that was probably what needed to happen for me personally, was to get, even with all the stuff, to get back in the game and to contribute in some way. The way I was asked to contribute was to stand up all the air defense interceptor units around the country. By the time 9/11 happened, we'd had in the 60s and 70s and early 80s a robust air defense construct around the country. Your Fresno Air Guard here was part of that. We had at one time almost 30 units providing air sovereignty alert fighters to protect the country. And by the time 9/11 happened, we had 14 jets on 5-minute alert at 7 sites around the country. And of course, that changed abruptly. And once they realized the threat was from our own commercial airliners. So as you recall, the FAA grounded all the commercial flights. And they stood up. I was tasked with standing up a more robust air defense network. So that was a blessing. I was calling Navy Reserve units and Marine Corps, and no one anticipated a thought like that. I called the Moore Naval Air Station down the street. I'm like, "Can you put some jets on alert?" And they said, "Yeah, we just don't have any missiles. We're a training base." Nobody thought of that. Same with our Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. "Can you put some jets overhead?" Yeah, but we only have a handful of missiles because we're a training base. So lots of airplanes, but very few missiles. So there were some things like that we had to sort through to sort that out. But just really thankful and blessed for the schools. Handled my daughters just exactly right. We know your dad was in the Pentagon. We know the Pentagon was hit. He hasn't been accounted for yet. So they took him to the principal's office, kind of a quiet, calm, constrained situation, and took good care of him. And so very, very thankful for that. Eventually was able to make contact with my 144th Fighter Wing and tell them, "Hey, I'm pretty much okay." And, trying to get back in the fight as fast as possible. So that worked out okay. Obviously, lots of loss of life. A lot of good friends were lost that day, especially in naval intelligence and the Army procurement side of the house, which was on the side of the building that got hit. So, that started a protracted, prolonged conflict in 2 theaters, Afghanistan and Iraq. If you watched the president's speech last night, it's not over. There are folks that can't stand our freedoms and our way of life and want to take them away. So thankfully, after I retired from the Air Force, Naval Intelligence called and said, "Hey, we've got a position for you down here in Southern Cal." So I went to work for the Navy as a civilian and enjoyed that thoroughly for a couple of 2.5 years. And then the fam started saying, "Hey, we miss Fresno, we miss Grandma and Grandpa, we miss the family, we miss our cousins and friends." So about that time, the IRS called and said, "Hey, we need a person to run security for the Western U.S. for the IRS, and you've got a resume that says you might know something about that." So I said, "Yeah, I'd be honored to do that. I'd be thankful to do that." So I came back up here 2 years ago and been here ever since. I don't know Lois Lerner. I keep all my emails. I don't have anything to do with the financial part of it. I just keep things from blowing up and protect our folks and facilities for the Western U.S. So thankful to get to do that. Kind of humorously, after I was back in Fresno, back at the 144th, I was a squadron commander, and they stood up a new career field called anti-terrorism. And I'm sure with tongue firmly in cheek, the personnel folks called and said, "Hey, you're kind of the only guy we know that's been blown up by a terrorist. Would you like to, at the time, would you like to be in this new career field?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've got skin in the game." I couldn't think of anything more intelligent to say. So I was like, "Yeah, I've got skin in the game. Yeah, I'd like to do that." So they didn't know how to train anybody in this new career field. So they sent us all over the place. Spent some time with the FBI, Quantico, the CIA, the NSA, and they were trying to give us kind of a broad spectrum look at how to prevent threats to the homeland. And so I've been kind of doing that ever since for the different agencies, for the Air Force, the Navy, and the IRS. So anyway, again, thank you for your time. Sorry I got a little choked up. I guess there's still parts of that I haven't dealt with. So anyway, and God bless you guys, and God bless America.
Thank you, John. Over that fish taco, that day that we met, it occurred to me after I left, and I went, oh my goodness, that was 13 years ago. John, you were a young man. I was much younger, too. But it occurred to me because he also mentioned the fact that his life changed and that his priorities changed that day. And I'm sure all of us experienced that after this event. I know I sat at the foot of my bed watching the tragedy unfold that morning after my husband had called me and said, turn on the TV, tell me what's going on. And I'm like, what? It's 5:30 in the morning or 6:30 in the morning. I turned on the TV and I witnessed the second plane going into the tower and just cried and told him, what do I do now? And he says, what do you mean, what do you do now? He says, you dress your 5-year-old and you take him to school and you get up and you go to work. He says, you don't want these people to think that they're going to change your life. He says, don't let them win. That day I got dressed, I took Stuart to school, I went to work, and I ran to my best friend there and said, I can't believe what's going on. And she goes, no, you're God. And I remember that like it was yesterday. And a month later, I believe Billy Graham came to town, and I went and I gave my life to God that day. I'd always believed in God, but now I really gave my life to God that day, which I found out is the easy part. Living the life is the hard part. But that's my personal experience that happened that day. And I personally will never forget the impact that it had on my life. And I'm sure all of us know where we were the day that this occurred. So here we are. BK Lighting has pledged to never forget the victims. We're honoring the heroes, and we support the brave men and women who fight for our freedom.